So you'll have about 6 minutes. I'll give you the whirly sign, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Okay, good deal. Hi, my name is Lauren Jonigan, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about Daily Cognitive Enhancer. Ultimately, we are looking, or myself, since I'm presenting here for the first time, one, looking for feedback from all of you. Since this is the first time I'm ever presenting, I don't know what kind of questions are going to be posed. And obviously, this is going to be a situation not only for the consumer, but for other businesses, as well as anyone who would want to invest. Going along with that, still very new as far as being a founder and having a startup. And furthermore, as a consumer-based good, this is not my full-time job. So again, having that guidance as well as any other feedback would be absolutely great and beneficial. Okay. And of course, we're looking for partnerships and opportunities as well. So I told you a little bit about where I'm coming from. I told you it's not my full-time job. My full-time job is as a military pilot. At the moment, I'm also an airline pilot since I recently got out of active duty military. I'm paired up with my friend Edward, in which we both met in the military. We were working like dogs. He was part-time military at that time and was working with a big tech company called Google. And so we both have that experience of having these long, arduous hours, having massive amounts of time just spent at work or at home working on work, and at the same time having that desire to do other things. We realize that having our job is not who we are completely. And so we know we're not alone in this. We know there's other people who have those obligations that they have to fulfill in their professional world as well as in their personal world. So in their profession, you have those obligations from your supervisors, timelines and deadlines and projects, and then you have those obligations for your subordinates, guiding them, giving them restrictions, and giving them this area to work in so that you can bring them up and let them blossom and let them grow. But then there's also those personal obligations or personal desires that you have to keep you whole and fulfilled. So an example for me, I am a fitness buff. I am actually a WBFF pro, a bodybuilding pro, whereas Edward, he goes more into, he has more of a entrepreneur side of him where he's actually doing another business on the side. So having those desires and having other things to keep you fulfilled as a person and keep you happy is ultimately what we know that other people have, that they want, right? So the problem, in essence, is how do you do all these things, these obligations for your profession to keep you, sustained financially, while still being able to tackle and engage and do the things that you love that make you happy, as well as keep you healthy, mentally and physically. So some things that people do use in order to keep that in line, the balance between your obligations and your desires. One is to reduce the anxiety, reduce the stress by going to, say, alcohol. Alcohol is one of those problem solvers. Another one, in order to keep you motivated and keep you focused and engaged, are stimulants like all of you are using right now, is coffee, caffeine, energy drinks. Myself, I cannot stand coffee. I can't stand the taste. It's really bitter, and when I have too much of it, I really get super jittery and spaced out, and I can't focus. And not to mention, I need a shooter after it, so it's not for me. And I do tea as well, and the caffeine content tends to be a lot less for the teas that I like. And so one of the studies done in 2012 showed that 12th graders ended up using Adderall as the third most used drug of choice after marijuana and synthetic marijuana. So the two things that calm you down were the first drugs of choice.
You need a prescription for that.
Huh?
You need a prescription for that.
You do need a prescription for Adderall, and that is another problem that we would like to tackle. We see that Adderall is used and abused among college-age students, among high school students, and among the science and technology professions. So we actually see a lot of that in Silicon Valley and a lot of startups even. And so I actually have a roommate who's 24 years old, fresh out of college, and she told me about her experience with Adderall, how prolific it is and how easy it is to get. Is she diagnosed with ADHD or ADD? Not at all. But she definitely used it as part of her external being weather, other aircraft, international rules, as well as internal being human factors such as fatigue. And so for me, I needed that ability to be able to focus and take charge of the mission, take charge of the situation in an effective and efficient way without sacrificing my health. Again, caffeine makes me super jittery, energy drinks tear up my stomach, so it's just not something I wanted to do. And so one of those things, again, this is why we came up with this product, the Daily Cognitive Enhancer. It's a 2.5 ounce liquid beverage shot, so if you think of 5-hour energy in that packaging, while being concentrated with all these nootropics. Nootropics, if you haven't heard of the term before, in essence is a drug, a nutraceutical, a food product that actually helps and improves your mental function. So we understand that the general population is not really familiar with that term, and so a big component of what we're doing as DCE is to educate about that term. And among the beverage companies, that is not really something that has been highlighted. There is no main company that is in the brain supplements field. And so we'd be offering it as a single shot, as a 3 bottles in a package, as well as a 12 bottle package. The idea behind this is actually to be sold as, well, starting with the B2C aspect, but ultimately we'd want to move into B2B because we feel like, one, we would have the ability to scale more as well as reduce the COGS in order to have more profitability. And like most consumer-based goods, you kind of have to give away a lot in order to expand and market yourself in order to have more people come and buy. So that was that in a nutshell as far as the business strategy. And then ultimately, our target market is going to be the science and technology professions. Even in those professions, you've got your finance and business folks as well as your marketing folks, professionals who are in those spaces that still abuse Adderall, who still have those desires to fulfill their obligations for the profession as well as still be social, still engage in their personal care activities. And so amongst some of our competitors, there's 3 competitors that we've identified as our biggest competitors and 3 substitutes. One of those competitors actually uses a synthetic nootropic that has negative effects and, according to one study, has some permanent mental effects. And so the FDA has actually not regarded it as generally regarded as safe. There's another competitor that we have that actually is comparable in the ingredients as far as the weights, but as far as the number of ingredients, we have more of that. And of our substitutes, as I said before, 5-hour energy has the same kind of packaging, so they've kind of dominated that field, and now there's tons of the same kind of marketing, or the same kind of packaging out there, so that's something to compete against. And then ultimately, Adderall is the number one thing that we will not be able to be on par with, because it is a drug, but ultimately that is something that we would like to tackle. So, in essence, again, we do have some limitations knowing that we are very small in the field of beverages, but we are trying to engage in the holistic aspect of engaging both mental and physical energy and focus. So, with that, are there any questions?
That's good. So, I always get to ask my first question, but this one I'm actually going to share a little bit of information with you. First, this is Lauren's first presentation, and through kind of a snafu, our coach didn't meet with her. So I would also say if you're interested in feedback on the presentation
Absolutely.
As well, right?
Yeah.
And then there was also a little bit of a snafu. The company is going through some issues. So
Absolutely, yeah.
I'll let you just tell them a little bit about that and then open it up for questions.
Sure. So since the time that I've signed up for 1millioncups in order to present, we have actually decided to dissolve the company, and that was in the span of about 3 weeks, which really surprised me on how fast things can ebb and flow as an entrepreneur and in a startup. So it was kind of like a little gut punch. But in essence, what happened is we had 3 founders. You know about me and Edward. The third one is in the oil and gas industry out of Texas. And I did not know, if you have a very corporate mindset, it's really hard to remove that paradigm and put it into a startup. And so what we were eventually going to do is, in essence, just put everything on there and not include the weights, which again is something that we did not want to do, but the cost, it was that balance between it. So, yeah.
But there's no cost to you to get that in addition to the logo and the name?
No,
Okay.
there's no extra cost for it, other than the testing behind it, yes. So real quick, you had a question?
Yeah, just some feedback, I would say it would be more information than educational, just based off of the slides
Mm-hmm.
and just all the information. I'm like that 24-year-old kid fresh out of business school. So question is, so I'm familiar with Adderall and coffee, energy drinks, for finals and stuff like that. What are the, I know you mentioned the FDA, has their regulations for products for consuming. What are the negative effects of nootropics?
Nootropic?
Yeah.
So in essence, if anything is under the label of a supplement, the FDA does not have to stamp approved on it, but FDA does actually put a label of generally regarded as safe on a lot of different ingredients. And so that's what we ended up using as the GRAS statement with all of our ingredients. And so yeah, there is no approval process for nootropics in general, other than not regarded as safe. And in essence, one of our competitors, like I said, it was a synthetic drug or a synthetic nootropic. You can sell that in the U.S. However, like I said, it's not generally regarded as safe according to the FDA. So that's all we could really use right now.
We got a couple things. First off, great job for your first time presenting.
Oh,
It's
thanks.
super hard getting up there. Great job.
I'm so
Secondly,
sorry.
small piece of feedback on some of the slides. I think a couple of them have a lot of information on them.
Yeah.
You could whittle that down. For instance, the one that listed the top ranking, like there's Adderall and there's cocaine and all those other things.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge statement to make, and so I think you could really just go just put that on that slide. If that
Oh,
makes
this
sense,
one
just
right
that most abused one.
Okay.
And that would make your point right there.
Okay.
Rather than all the surrounding information that is basically the research that went into that point.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess what we wanted to emphasize was just stimulants in general. So
Yeah.
okay.
I think it resonates pretty quickly though. Like everybody can identify that and go, you're absolutely right, and then you can move on from there.
Okay. Thank you.
Real quick, one competitor to check out in the Bay that has some funding and is approaching this from a much different angle is Kin.
Kin?
Yeah, and they're more positioned towards a alcohol alternative or a cocktail alternative, but also using nootropics and aptogens and euphorics and other things as well. So check them out. The last actual question, sorry, is do you have a subset of the market that you're really looking to target this towards? Is it health buffs? Is it busy aviation pilots? Is it where's that niche that you're going to go after first?
So we figured first would be the science and technology field, and it's mainly because of our proximity to the Bay Area and how many people abuse Adderall or trying to, as well as cocaine even, any kind of stimulants where people are just I want to focus, I want to get things done, I got stuff to do, as well as being social or being, holistic about some things. So that's why we figured we'd start with that first. But we have a whole list of, okay, what's next? I know for me in the military world, and especially among aviators, yes, caffeine is huge. When I was deployed, we would always have these things called Rippets. It's a energy drink, and people would just be downing them like water. It was ridiculous. And at the same time, there are some fighter pilots who end up having amphetamines, go pills, that are prescribed to them in order to keep going. So we know that is something that we do want to go into, but like I said, we figured we start with proximity-wise, what's over here first, and then go down the list for the next.
One suggestion might be to focus on that niche that is unique to you. I mean, being a pilot, like that is obviously a subset of the group that you have direct experience and access to. Could be a door that's already somewhat open.
That's a very good point, yeah. And that's a very good point.
I think the bodybuilding side of it could be same as well, because you need focus and drive, and it's like, okay, am I gonna go lift, deadlift 450 again or today, you know, it's like hard to do that. Another sort of comment, good time, good, you know, very difficult to get up there, you present well, keep focus. I think the point about too much information, I love to do that too, so, you know, it's like, wait, there's all this stuff, but, you know, maybe 2-3 things is all people can keep in their heads.
Okay.
And the other thing being that I think there's I think focusing a little bit more on the intended result and you know, what do you want? Creativity, what do you want this, what do you want? Those are the things that people want.
Okay.
And there's and where I'm going with that is there's a difference between, the problem with some of these drugs is there's the perception that you're performing better. The reality is that you're not. But you know, it's like people, you know, texting, driving. No, I'm paying attention. No, you're really not.
Right.
But trying to argue that's very difficult because people's perception is, I'm paying full attention. So if there's some way you can get around that to say, you know, we provide real performance as opposed to these other things that, you know, are fake performance or something along that line. I think there's an angle to go down there.
I see what you're saying, and I see that mainly because one of the ingredients that we put in there that's not really a nootropic is beta-alanine, which you'll find a lot in bodybuilding worlds. It's because you feel it. And a lot of things, a lot of reasons why people end up going to caffeine or a lot of stimulants is because they feel it. And so you won't really feel the effects of the ingredients that we have because it just keeps going. You will see the results by the way you focus, but you won't necessarily feel the tingles or feel
Right.
the energy per se, because we're trying to delineate ourselves away from an energy drink and more towards the brain stuff. But yeah, I totally
Well,
get what you
people
mean.
want an edge. I mean,
Yeah.
when you were talking
Yeah.
about especially science and technology, you know, there's a lot of competition.
Mm-hmm.
People want an edge, and that's where like, hey, this is a real edge versus these other things that make you feel, you know, and probably decrease performance.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you got an alternative. I don't know where you can quite go with that. I haven't fleshed all of that out.
Okay, thank
Just-
you.
yeah.
Yeah. So regarding your intellectual property, do you have trademark or copyright? Have you filed for those?
So the trademark is what's pending right now, and it just don't have the you know, the status on that as it is, but
Uh-huh.
it's been submitted.
Okay, and are you working with an attorney in terms of you acquiring the IP without it coming to bite you back later?
Luckily, the partner who left said you can have it. So I'm like, okay, so now I just have to transfer it in my name and remove it out of Daily Cognitive Enhancer LLC, since we're
Okay.
dissolving the actual company.
So no cost to you
No
to
cost.
acquire the IP?
Yeah, just the change of the
And-
ownership. Yeah.
And I would suggest getting something legalish in writing from him that,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Memorandum, yeah.
Okay.
You don't want them popping up 2 years later after you're kicking ass.
That's why we
right?
figured we'd dissolve the whole companies,
A
yeah.
blood thumbprint.
Yes, sir.
So first, great job, Lauren.
Thank you.
The one thing on the pitch that I'll suggest is to start out sooner with what you're trying to do with the company,
Okay.
and then you can go back into all those stories, and then I agree with everybody else's points about it too, but that'll ground everything that that's going to follow.
Okay.
I think you have an advantage in that it's really easy because you're talking about it's a thing you drink and it helps your brain, right? So it's like, it's easy to do, so I think you can use that to your advantage to get your picture, but great job. The question that I have is going to build on the first 3 questions that were asked. You were talking about grass, and I think Victor's question was kind of leading into DSHEA a little bit, right? The Dietary Health Education Act, those of you who aren't familiar with that space. And then like Ron, you were building on that as well, that essentially, like you have GRAS, which speaks to the safety side, right? So the FDA says we're not going to care because it's grass, and so we're not going to worry about the efficacy side, or sorry, we're not going to worry about the safety side, but the efficacy side is the flip side of DSHEA, which is why you're not allowed to say, so to your point, Ron, like legally they can't actually make specific claims. They make what are called structure function claims, which is like enhances cognitive function, which doesn't have a clinical definition.
Yes.
Right. So outside of a clinical definition for those kinds of things, right, these products are made or break based on their marketing. And so, like, for the purpose of my question, I actually don't care if it works, because it works actually doesn't have a definition in this room right now, which is fun philosophically, and I'd geek out over that later. But so my question is, to like tie those three together, is because of the nature of all of that, and talking about like where's the market and how you're going to find, what do you start with, and all of that. The question that I have for you is, like, leading into this, what is the customer validation that you've done so far? Like, who have you guinea pigged with this thing, and what results have you gotten from that? What are people saying that's going to give you an indication
Tying
of
into
where
social proof, right?
I don't care about the proof.
Well, no, social proof being this group of people says it works and it gives credence.
It's not even about whether it works, it's these people are going to buy it, but yes, I think I agree with you, Ron. It's like, so what questions have you asked in the marketplace? What answers have you gotten that say, we, or at least Lauren and Edward, we're going to walk in this direction?
So that's where we left off before we had to fizzle away, unfortunately. But what we did do, because there were two aspects to that, to actually getting feedback. One was the cost of selling one bottle, and then two was what are people's testimonies in order for us to be able to go back and be able to market that, and then really try to get enough of that feedback in order to say, hey, these people say this about this, right? And so what we've done is when we were starting to think about this, I literally just filmed myself saying, this is what I do because this is what happened to me and this is how it affects me. I threw it on Instagram, I threw it on Facebook. Friends and family are like, yeah, let me try it out. So that was one way that we're like, okay, people are actually gonna buy it for this amount when it's not even like foolproof yet. So, okay, got that idea. But then two, I started giving it out to a lot of people at work. And luckily, you know, being a flyer in the military, you have to actually take every supplement or vitamin or anything that you're taking to the flight doc to get it approved. And so luckily everything was approved. So no one was afraid of their flying careers. They tried it out, and I had a whole gambit of different kind of results. One was one of my coworkers, he said he actually got more creative. So he took it right before doing like a lot of office work, but he just started coming up with new ideas in order to make new things, new processes happen at work. Another one actually took it and he was like, oh man, I had to present and I actually had focus. A friend of mine at the gym said the same thing because he was doing a seminar at the gym about nutrition. So I'm getting different things from different people, so I haven't had a chance to actually consolidate everything and drive towards a particular target audience per se. And it's mainly because all the testimonies are a little different, and just like most supplements and medications, they are different per person. Medications usually say this because scientifically it actually has an effect chemistry-wise, but when it's a supplement like this and there's no definitive backing to it, then it's like, well, we can say this ingredient has some clinical studies in order to make this result, in which we did pair up with 4 brand name companies for some of our nootropics because they have some of those clinical backings that they use with a third-party person. So, but that's all we can say is this ingredient has this result, or over a period of time has this result, but we can't say it for the entire cocktail, if you will.
Right. So I like the way you're thinking about that, and I like how you're kind of doing the partnerships and asking questions. So like, assuming you pick this back up again, what's the next question you're going to ask the market?
Okay, and if you have a quick answer for that, because we're out of time.
Sorry.
Unfortunately, I don't have a quick answer for that.
I have a really quick, thank you for your service, but the thing about your flight doctor clearing it, that's a good testimony.
And we wanted actually to get more doctors. I have a friend of mine who works with Harvard, and he's like, he's a neuro-oncologist, and he's like, don't put my name on it because he's afraid of any kind of thing with it. So in the future with any other medical professions, it's like, well, we want your feedback, but we can't really say who it is. So.
Maybe the trainers for the Sacramento Kings could say.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
So, for those of you who are new to our